Aussie Lawn Stars is the first podcast in Australia for the lawn and garden maintenance industry. Hi, I'm Garry Ashton, and my goal is to help businesses survive and thrive with a sharp focus on business systems, skills, and checklists that will ensure you know what will help you stay in business and succeed. With an extensive back catalogue of interviews from our diverse industry, I look for stories, the success tips, and the hard lessons learned. Sometimes we focus on tools and trailer setups and the brands that are the backbone of our support network, but mostly I am driven to find you evidence of what you can do or what you can change to ensure you win.
We're going to try a little bit of ASMR, see if we can record me doing some hand weeding and talking on the mic. See if this stupid GoPro 12 will actually record for me. I recorded a whole motorbike ride last weekend, and I went home and uploaded the content. It said it uploaded. And then when I went to look in the cloud, it wasn't there. When I looked at the camera memory card, it wasn't there. Just nothing. So it got me pissed off. So now we're doing a test. Let's see what will happen as we record. We're going to have to record Lincoln hours of this to test it properly, but I'm heading to Melbourne in a couple of days to record some content down there. And I want this thing to work properly. Pulling out a bunch of farmers' friends here. In the meantime, I want to talk about some things that are important. You might remember I did an interview with John Pajak or so ago. And then I saw him post a nice little episode afterwards where it was just him talking. I was like, I could do just talking to myself. That if I'm hand weeding, running the GoPro in the background, and talking to myself will be a little bit more interesting for you. So what John Pajak was talking about on this interview was the idea of people who come into the industry without a care in the world for anybody else. They come in, they make a few dollars, and they plan on exiting the industry without worrying about the damage they do to the industry in the process. So he was very much promoting that people have a little bit of foresight when they start working lawn mowing, landscaping, whatever you might call it, and start thinking about the implications they're going to have for other people who are in the industry for the long term. You might think, who cares? Like, who really cares what's going to happen to the next person who comes along and quotes a job when you've done it too cheap? Do you think that the next person is going to come along and quote that job, and then person's going to turn around and go, but the last guy charged $50? Well, that's the impact you have on the next person, is they've got to then talk to that potential customer about why you were too cheap and why you didn't bother turning back up when the season turned to crap and the weather turned crap and you couldn't be bothered trying to make beer money anymore. What do? Well, think about it. Are you running your business like you don't care about anyone else? Or are you running your business like this industry is actually a worthwhile industry to be in, and that people are trying to make a genuine living out of this, and that there's a bit of respect in doing the job properly, servicing customers well, showing yourself a little bit of dignity and respect, and being able to continue to provide that service, or pass that customer on to somebody else who has that same level of respect, rather than having this continuous cycle of people expecting you not to turn up from one service to the next. Where do you go with it? It's kind of up to you. I can't tell you otherwise. It's important to think about. And if you haven't thought about it, now's time. I have thought about it. I've had other people say to me, we don't want cowboys in the industry because they ruin it for the rest of us. And typically I've said, well, deal with it. Because you're going to have cowboys in the industry whether you want them or not. But when I listened to Pajak talking about this and saying they actually damage the industry for the rest of us, it's a really fair point. When I listened to Grant Osborne saying the same thing, they actually damage the industry for the rest of us. So are you damaging the industry for other people? Are you cutting corners? Are you running around in a ute that's a sleeper, doesn't have any signage on it? It's just you doing your thing and knowing that you can drive past other people and nobody can look you up, nobody knows how to contact you, which means you don't really care about your own reputation, let alone anyone else's. This garden is full of farmers' friends and some cherry tomato. This jolly microphone tickled my neck and I thought it was a spider. It's going to take a while to pull all these farmers' friends out, so you'll just have to put up with listening to me ramble, and even if the neighbours come in. Sorry about that. But back to this idea of what are you doing to make sure that you're thinking about the impact you have on other people and not just making a few dollars. Now, when John Pajak was talking about this, he's talking about it from an American perspective, and Americans have different standards to Australians, so they're worried a little bit about you coming into the industry and only mowing once a fortnight. In Australia, that's pretty much just expected from everybody, that you will come in and mow fortnightly for 20 cuts a year, and there's a lot of people out there who end up doing 5 or 6 cuts a year for customers that try and push it out as long as possible. I've done it, so I know. You don't want to be that person. You don't want to be former Garry. You want to be the person who does it decent. You want to be the person who's setting expectations with your customers that they actually want. You ever think about it? If you mow your own lawn, do you want it to look nice, or do you want it to be the bare minimum? Shout out to Mark Ladaway, the bare minimum guy. Now, you can make good money being the bare minimum guy, but do you want to offer that customer the opportunity to improve, or do you want to offer them less than what they actually want? Now, if I turn the camera around, I'll go and do this. You can see what my yard looks like every day of the year. Yes, it's not perfect. You can see the farmer's friends I'm digging out, but there's a robot up the back there, and there's a lawn that is always the same height. Always the same height, because the robot cuts it every day. And that's what I want my lawn to look like. So, what do you want your lawn to look like? Do you want it to always look tidy? Because that's a daily cut. Do you want it to look, what I would suggest is a bare minimum, is being cut once a week when it's growing, and probably once every 2 to 3 weeks when it's not growing, just to keep it tidy. And then you start going, okay, when it's not growing, spray some weeds so that it actually stays lawn. Got to do a couple of other things like that, like prepared for army grubs and black beetles and all the different things that can actually destroy your lawn when it's not growing very fast. So what do you want from your lawn? And what do your customers want? Well, chances are, if you got a customer who says, leave it till it's a foot long, they are not aware that that's actually going to end up looking really terrible. They're just going for what's the cheapest right now. They don't have foresight. So you got to give them some foresight and ask them to think about it. I did this with a customer. I've talked about this guy so many times. I think his ears will be burning. His lawn was a foot tall in 2 weeks. Rubbish in my hair there. Foot tall in 2 weeks. And I said to him, you need to be cutting it more than once every 2 weeks. And he'd just bought a house for $1 million, over $1 million. He says, I can't afford to. I've overextended myself. And I said, okay, well, if you can't afford to pay me to cut it every week, then get yourself a mower and cut it every week, or cut it in between when I cut it. And he understood what I was saying. Do you want your lawn to look like a lawn, or do you want it to look like a back paddock? Because that's what his was looking like. And I explained to him, I said, when you don't get it cut every week in March and April, which it was that time of year when I had this conversation with him, then at the end of April, in Australia, of course, end of April, the grass stops growing. And if I cut it from a foot tall to nothing on its last cut, then you don't have a lawn. You just got bare dirt, and it's ugly, and the weeds are going to grow, and all the disease is going to come in, and you're going to have no lawn. And then in spring, you might be lucky if you get some lawn come back. You might not. You might just have weeds. It's going to look terrible. It's never going to improve when you don't look after it properly. So the point I'm making here is this guy saw that even though he couldn't afford for me to do it, he needed to make sure his lawn was cut consistently short, not too short, but consistently short enough and regularly enough so that it would stay as a healthy lawn instead of turning ugly. If you cut your lawn once a fortnight in Australia, in most places, it will be okay. But on the east coast of Australia, where we get unpredictable rainfall, there are occasions, particularly in the summer months, December, January and February, where it won't be okay. Get enough rainfall that it grows so quick that it needs weekly cuts. Now, yes, customers typically don't have the foresight to say, oh, can you cut it more often for summer? They do when it comes to Christmas time, don't they? And you know it, every Christmas. Can you cut it right before Christmas? Because we want it to look its best. But when you try and say, well, let's cut it weekly through all of December, January and February, they want to save the money. So a little bit of foresight about the quality of their lawn being improved by cutting it weekly in summer. And you can even get them to go weekly through spring and autumn as well, which you should. If they want a nice lawn, then it's an easy offering for them. You might not want to offer that because in the back of your mind, you think they're going to say no. If you ask somebody looking for a new car, if they want a second-hand car, how are you going to know they want a new car? If you ask somebody that's got a sports field, if they want it to look like a paddock with 6-foot high grass, how are you going to know they want it kept tidy? Ask your customers if they want more, if they want better, and offer them more and offer them better. That should be a no-brainer. Do it. Can you tell I'm a bit frustrated by that one? Why do people not offer their customers more? Ask them, do you have pride in your yard? Do you want to have pride in your yard? And how good do you want it? Because otherwise, you're offering them the bare minimum. Now, I have a good laugh at this because I've told people, and I had somebody say they actually told their customer this, do you want to be my worst customer? You have to set, the new word is customer avatars. You have to set your customer avatar and don't call them the worst customer. I will. Your worst customer should be somebody who gets at least 20 cuts a year. That gives you that bare minimum of fortnightly cuts through the growing season, through spring, summer, and autumn. That should be your absolute worst customer. Now, don't call them worst. Call them the acceptable standard and then offer them better. So do you want to be acceptable? Do you want to be better, or do you want to be best? And you can come up with your own words there, because they're pretty average marketing words that I just used. Marketing is a really important thing for your business. So when you talk to your customers, you are marketing, whether you mean it or not. If you don't mean it, you're going to miss the mark. Think about it. Offer them 3 levels of service. So the bare minimum, the worst customer, the acceptable customer. There's a way you can word that says, this is not really where I want you to be, but at the same time, still shows respect for them. Then you can offer them where you want them to be, which is in the middle. You want your customer to be at your worst standard, which is acceptable, or do you want them to be at the highest level possible, which is actually a bit of a burden to you, but it's a good burden. Or do you want them to be in the middle, where you can actually provide the most customers the best quality standard that allows you to actually maintain that throughout the whole year, and all of your customers know that that's the standard they expect when they come to you? That's where you try and sell them. So back to the reason why I started this recording. It's because John Pajak said, have a think about the impact you have on the industry. Are you in it for the short term? And even if you are in it for the short term, have a think about that. Are you rocking the industry by being unreliable and inconsistent and gouging the industry, or not charging enough, not knowing realistically? That's what it comes down to, is just simply not knowing what the industry should know. Couple of business skills, couple of practical skills. How do I provide a good service and a consistent service at a reasonable price? So I'm telling you those things right now. We're talking about frequency of service. We're talking about the types of service you offer your customers. They're all important. And if you haven't thought about it, start thinking about it, because somebody else will offer it. And it's just a damn shame if you haven't thought about it already, because you're not competing with the better end of the industry. You're actually setting a lower standard for the bottom end of the industry. Have I made that point clear? I hope you listen. I hope you like what you're hearing too. So I'm going to try and pull this big fat weed out. I think I'm going to end up pulling this whole gardenia out of here as well, because it's dead. I know, there's some live bits there. It's so buried, couldn't see the live bits. Almost fell into the pool on that one. Didn't look too unstable, but my foot almost went into the skimmer box.
Catch Pro has been a supporter of Aussie Lawn Stars since its very first episode. Since we have formed a partnership with Catch Pro, a lot of Aussie Lawn Stars have made orders using the code LawnStars10, and I really appreciate your support. To continue supporting Aussie Lawn Stars, you can purchase your supplies and industry products from the Catch Pro website with the code LawnStars10 in all caps.
So, had a little break. It actually works. Awesome, huh? So, you get to listen to me some more while I'm hand weeding, pulling grass out of my gardens, because this is a job I have not bothered doing for most of the time I've lived in this house. So, we'll keep on doing it and talking to you about things you can do to make sure you're thinking about of the industry and your future, because let's face it, a lot of people don't. I was just talking to a friend and had a cuppa this afternoon, talking to him about business, and he's thinking about starting a business or doing a side gig whilst he's got a job. And that's one of the things I said to him, was to think about what that should look like for him. It's not going to be the same for everybody. So you might well look at lawn mowing or gardening as a side gig, and chances are, if you do, you're probably not aware of what it's worth to do the work, or even what quality of work is worth doing for customers. So we were talking about that earlier in terms of really offering customers a decent quality of work. And if you don't offer it, then they don't know that it's available. If you do offer it, they might still say no. But if you offer what you think they want and you haven't asked them what they want, you're not good at your job. You might be good at cutting grass. You might be good at gardening. Chances are you're not. Probably not as good as you think you are. But if you ask them what they want, then you're starting to work out how marketing works. You need to think about that. If you want to offer your services as a business to somebody else, do they actually want it? And what do they want from it? How do you know? If you don't ask them. First mistake I made was assuming what they wanted. And don't get me wrong, you've got to do that to some degree too. You've got to assume until you work it out. You've got to offer them something. But looks like we're taking out some live branches there. I'll take out a few more here, pulling out a gardenia that's diseased. So too bad, so sad. What I'm saying though is it's reasonable assumption for you to make. There's other people making money doing gardening and lawn mowing. So people want gardening and lawn mowing. But to find out what they want, you're going to make some assumptions to start with. Just don't make assumptions without doing your research. If you do your research by talking to other lawn mowing people, there's some great communities online. We've got a bunch of Facebook groups in Australia, a new one that we've started up just for people like me, people who want to listen to my podcast and people who want to talk to industry experts and focus on improving the industry. So check that one out. It is the Gardening and Landscape Maintenance Group for Australia, and it is going to grow. It's going to be focused on improving, and people who are wanting to participate in that, we'll keep it focused, we'll keep it good. It'll help you with exactly what we're talking about now. If you go back to what I was saying, initially you might have to make some assumptions, but straight up, as soon as you can, start asking questions of other contractors in the groups, start asking questions of people that you're quoting and customers that you might acquire. If somebody tells you, hey, I've got a job for you, the customer wants it done fortnightly, and you just make the assumption that that's correct without actually asking the customer for any more details, you missed your opportunity for marketing. If you go and ask them, what do you actually want? Be prepared to offer them several options in the direction you are prepared to work. That's the first step. What are you prepared to offer them, and do they want that? So it's worth qualifying people on if they want the services you offer. So if you offer fortnightly mowing, A, I think you're missing the mark. But B, if you don't ask customers if they want fortnightly mowing, how do you know if you've missed the mark? Yeah, a lot of customers will take up fortnightly mowing because guess what? It's cheaper than weekly mowing. It's going to cost them less. And give you a bit of an idea. If you look at an average residential job in Australia at $80 per cut, 20 cuts a year, that's a $1,600 a year customer. That's based on fortnightly cuts for 20 cuts a year. Yeah, there's 2 or 3 cuts that are done through winter, but basically it's fortnightly cuts, 20 cuts a year. So you will find people that want weekly cuts through summer. And if you don't ask them, you're just going to be offering them 20 cuts a year when they really want 26 cuts a year. Plus weed treatments, plus grub treatments, plus fertiliser. Instead of a $1,600 a year customer, they're actually a $3,000 a year customer, but you're only giving them $1,600 and telling them that that's where they should be. Does that sound crazy? Sure does. Sounds crazy to me. This garden is terrible, but we'll get it there. So we've kind of beaten this dead horse quite a lot, but I hope you're getting the message. The next message we're going to talk about is how you look at your business and what other people see. So my friend that I was talking to whilst we had a cuppa this afternoon, sorry Jared for the shout out. No, sorry, not sorry. Probably has the idea in his head, much like I did before I started, that he wants to be self-employed rather than running a business. So self-employed, you're still in business, of course, but self-employed means you work for yourself. Self-employed means you can choose what you do. You can choose whether you accept a customer or whether you reject a customer. Self-employed means that you're the person doing the work, not employees working for you. And that's one of the most significant changes in business when you start up is, do you put on employees? Do you want to provide a service that is reasonably easy to duplicate and turn into a growth strategy for a business? If you put on employees, providing you've done your background and you know that it's reasonable to offer a service at a price that you can pay employees to do and you can make a profit on, go back and listen to some other episodes if you want to do the maths on that, or call me. You can look up my podcast on Instagram, Facebook, anywhere. You can find out how to get in touch with me. Give me a call, send me a message, send me an email on aussielawnsstars@icloud.com. There's many ways you can reach me. I'm happy to talk. But as for that, we're going back to what that looks like for you right now. If you choose to stay solo, self-employed, that's what most people think. That's what they want. And if you choose that and you don't want to deal with employees, just be mindful that that's what you're actually wanting. When you talk to prospective new jobs, you're doing a quote, does this fit with me working on my own, or do I need people to help me get the work done? And if I'm working on my own, am I making enough money on my own to stay self-employed and not be working with other people or putting on other employees to keep up the work? It's a lot to think about, but it's important to think about. Do you actually want to grow? Do you just want to employ yourself? Once you have thought about that and you come to grips with that idea, it will change over time, right? It's changed for me. The next thing to think about is, how do you look when you go into a quote? Now, if you turn up in a beat-up old vehicle with or without a trailer, beat-up old equipment, that's fine if you're starting out and that's what you've got available, but that's the image that you give. When you quote, do you want to set an image of being more professional? You want a ute that looks tidy, newish, doesn't have to be brand new, but tidy and reasonably attractive. Do you want it to be sign written? Now, I'm going to suggest if you want to consider that what you're doing is a business rather than damaging the industry, you're actually trying to look reasonably professional. Sign writing on your vehicle and or your trailer, well worth doing. It tells your customers that you're here, that you're not going anywhere. Whereas if you have no sign writing, yes, Mark right away talking about you. If you have no sign writing, you can do that. There is a place for it, but it certainly is a form of marketing that I'm going to say is less desirable marketing. Like I said, there's a place for it, but having the signs says, I'm treating my business professionally. I'm here. People can find me. Yeah, I don't put on my sign writing a big list. My sign writing has my business name. Okay. If you want to go one step further than your business name, have your contact details and, of course, a logo. All right. A nice, neat, professional logo is helpful. Once you start saying on top of Aussie Lawn Stars, I do lawn mowing and gardening and hedge trimming and gutter cleaning and handyman work and all the different things, it's harder for a customer to process. It takes them time to go, what is this that he actually offers? Now, you might want them to start thinking about those things, but putting it on your ute and your trailer is distracting and is not as professional. So if your business name has something connected to your location or your name and lawn mowing or gardening or landscaping or maintenance, that gives your customers and your quotes enough information and it looks professional. So what do you think I'm suggesting? Simple and tidy and professional. Also, do I look professional wearing these clothes? No, I'm doing my own garden. It doesn't look professional. And you shouldn't do this when you're working for a customer. Have a nice, neat shirt. I'm going to suggest high-vis. You don't always need high-vis, but if you're doing this sort of work, chances are you're going to end up working beside the road, whether you're loading or unloading lawnmowers and equipment and various different things out of your vehicle, your trailer, whatever. And if you don't have high-vis when you're working roadside, you're actually doing the wrong thing. So you might find a situation where you don't need to do that by the side of the road, and you could argue that you don't need high-vis. There's plenty of people who don't use high-vis. I'm not trying to tell them they're wrong, maybe. No, seriously. I value safety, and on a lot of sites, when you start doing commercial work, it's just a requirement. So I made the decision fairly early on to go high-vis for that reason, because my customers are going to expect me to be professional and to have work health safety standards that are in line with the requirements. High-vis it is. You choose according to what you're doing and whether it's necessary or whether you want it. The second thing there is that my shirts have my logo. Nice little neat. Name the business and the logo on the front pocket. I put it on the back as well. You don't have to. On the front pocket is good enough. And if you want to go one step further, if you're going to have employees, then put the staff name beside the business name, above or below, doesn't matter. Makes it a whole lot easier for the customers when you've got staff turning up to go, oh, that's Matt, oh, that's Rachel. Easy, confident and professional.
If you're out there tackling strata sites, commercial grounds, retirement villages, or those tough summer acres, you know a full commercial mower makes all the difference. That's why more commercial contractors are switching to Right Standers, the original stand-on mower, available in Australia through Cox dealers nationwide. Built tough for our conditions, the legendary AeroCore deck delivers a flawless, even cut every time. Quick manoeuvrability in tight spots, compact design for easier trailer loading, Kawasaki or Briggs engines, hydro gear drives and a serious commercial durability. Stand instead of sit for less fatigue, better visibility, quicker jobs and more profit in the bank. From the Stander B for great value to the X or ZK for next level performance, everyone is raving about the upgrade. Head to rightmowersaustralia.com.au or your local dealer today. Be sure to mention Aussie Lawn Stars. Right Mowers get the job done faster, cleaner and easier. Your back and your business will thank you.
There's some thoughts on things that improve your position in the industry and improve the industry on the whole. Some of the other things that you really need to think about is when you start doing professional work, people that ask you for a quote are going to do some fact checking on you. Now, I don't really want to say this out loud, but I don't have a website at the moment. I will get that sorted. It's not a big deal for me because I'm not chasing new customers or quotes or anything at the moment. But if you are looking to get work, if you're doing quotes that are for commercial work, even for residential jobs, you will still get this. You need to think about a few things that will make you look professional in front of the people you're quoting. We've already covered a bunch of things, but these ones are really getting into the business nitty-gritty. Do you have documentation that says I am doing this professionally? When I say documentation, the basics that you should have in a business. So if you're just self-employed, you might not have these all lined up, but some of them are critical. Having insurance. If you have insurance, the documentation that goes along with that says, hey, I know what I'm doing. I know what my insurance means, and here's a copy of it for a prospective new customer so that they know that I'm covered. And we can get into the weeds on customers making claims against your insurance and all that sort of stuff. Yes, it's worth going down that documentation path too, so that there's clear expectations between you and your customers about, is this covered by insurance or is this your responsibility as a customer? And yeah, we'll really get into the weeds if we start talking about that. But nonetheless, sometimes your customers are going to ask for a insurance certificate of currency. Do I have public liability insurance that is current? The reasonable request. And if you have it, you've done your due diligence. Good on you. If you don't have it, work it out before you get into that position where you're doing a quote and they ask for it. Because even residential customers will ask for it. Not always. Anytime you're doing commercial work, it's just expected. And public liability insurance starts at 5 million. 10 million is common. 20 million is expected on some commercial work. So just get used to that idea. The next one is workers' comp insurance. A lot of commercial work will ask you to have workers' comp insurance. And that's a little bit trickier because if you're self-employed, you can't have it. So in that case, they might still ask you to do the work if you have income protection insurance and a certificate of currency for that. Do you have it? Workers' comp, income protection? If you don't have it, why not? For your own peace of mind, but also for your customers. This is about being professional. It's about thinking ahead for your business, for your customers, and for yourself. So really straightforward. Yeah. Second thing that goes hand in hand with having workers' comp is having a work health and safety policy, or on a simpler level, SWMS document. There are a few different names for these things, but SWMS, SWMS document, says this is how we do our job safely. These are the tools we use. These are the processes we use. These are the safety concerns that we're aware of and that we protect against. You need that in a lot of most commercial work. So that's the bare basics of a work health and safety policy that you can set up as a document. Sometimes you need to go much more in depth than just a SWMS document. Sometimes you need to have a very lengthy work health safety policy. And if you've got employees, you can still get away with a SWMS document as your work health and safety policy, but there are times where, and let's just say you choose to put on an employee. If you go through Facebook Marketplace and you say, I need an employee to do some gardening, chances are most people are going to turn their nose up and say, I don't want to do gardening. But if you take it seriously and you're okay, let's put out a proper employment ad in Seek or with your family. It doesn't really matter where you put it, but you're going to start thinking about where you get the best returns once you start chasing multiple employees. If you have 3 documents in place, that tells your prospective employees that you're professional about how you employ. Guess what? Same with customers. If you are professional, you have clear expectations that are written in documentation, people trust you. If you don't have those things, people start wondering, what's going to go wrong when? Not if, but when. So what happens if I break a glass window at your property? What happens if you're my employee and you break a glass window? Or what happens if you're my employee and we have a dispute about what you're doing and why you're doing it wrong? If I have documents in place for an employee, like a work health safety policy, like an employee handbook, employee manual often it's called, and an employee contract, those documents, along with a little bit of AI, will give you the basis to go, these are common expectations of employees and employers in this industry, and these are specific to my business and you as an employee. Can you see the picture we're forming here? It's about transparency. It's about clear expectations amongst all of the people that are involved in this. It's going to make a massive difference when you start looking at business, even if you're self-employed without employees, from this perspective, because it allows you to be professional and to make sure that you are offering a professional service to employees and a professional employment opportunity to employees. Did I say that wrong? Yeah, I think I did. Professional service to customers, professional employment opportunity to employees. Try that. So we've covered quite a few things, haven't we? Next thing I want to cover, just for Grant Osborne. When you work in this industry and you're thinking about the good of the industry rather than just slash and dash, grab and run, cowboy moves, your money, those sorts of things, once you start thinking a little bit above that level, have a think about the impact you have on the other people in the industry. are you going to negatively impact somebody else who's doing that job already? If you go and approach that person, that job, and say, hey, I can do it cheaper than your current guy. Yes, you're going to negatively impact everybody when you do that. Doesn't mean you can't do it, but have a think about it. Do you want that to be the taste that you leave in somebody else's mouth of, I came along and undercut your customer and stole them from you? There's plenty of work out there for all of us. Yes, you're going to end up quoting jobs and coming across people who say, I need to replace my current gardening person, lawn mowing person, whatever the situation. You're going to come across it. But if your modus operandum is following trailers around and then approaching those customers after that trailer leaves and saying, I can do it cheaper, correct terminology is you're a dickhead. Have a think about that. Yes, like I said, there are going to be times where they come to you. There's going to be plenty of times where they come to you. One of the most popular sayings in Australia with this work is the last guy. Yeah, you're getting asked to do something because the last guy didn't do it properly, because the last guy didn't turn up when he was supposed to, because the last guy, and the last guy, Leroy, didn't do it properly. So I think Leroy's moved past that now. He's doing some really good work. But nonetheless, the last guy trope sucks. And you don't want to be the last guy where somebody else is calling and saying, you didn't turn up and I've got to replace you with somebody who's reliable. You don't want to be the last guy who did turn up and broke a window. Yeah, it'll happen, but you don't want to be that guy. So you want to try and minimize those things happening. You want to minimize the likelihood that you drop a tree without insurance on somebody's house and cause hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage. Can you see where I'm going? Don't be the last guy. Have a think about it when you approach other people's customers and they say, the last guy. Because chances are, yeah, I've done it too. Try and avoid that, but it happens, right? You can't prevent everything. Not everyone's going to be your customer and not everyone's going to be happy. But if you are doing those things we've talked about already to stay professional, then when it does happen to you, usually there's nothing else you could have done to save that person as a customer. Nothing else you could have done for them. Let's hope. But it happens. And if you are marketing in reasonable ways that is not damaging the industry, you'll get a lot of people coming to you and saying the last guy this, the last guy that, and you shouldn't feel bad if you're not the one out there trying to undercut reasonable, respectable businesses that are already in the industry. So don't do that. Quite simple. Do offer quotes. Do offer quality work. Do offer businesses, customers, commercial work. Everybody, offer them quotes. But don't go scalping the industry. Don't go stealing other people's jobs when you can come by it honestly. There's so much work out there, and you know it. Now, I guess it's a good place to finish this up. We are currently, and this will date this episode, in the midst of a war. Some might say it's a world war. We're not quite there yet, but by the time this goes out, it could be. So in times of uncertainty, we all get uncertain. And you might be uncertain. Do I start a business? Is my business going to manage going through a war? Am I okay? And yeah, that's uncertainty. Times of uncertainty, that's where we're at. We have to acknowledge it. Is this industry going to keep on going in this uncertainty? Well, you can't predict the future. So this industry is probably one of the newest industries in the world we live in. And that means, yeah, it may or may not keep going. We don't know.
I've got a quick shout out to our sponsor, Sortscape, at sortscape.com/lawnstars. Job management built specifically for lawn mowing and garden maintenance. If you're still running your business off a paper diary or a basic calendar, Sortscape gives you the stuff they can't. Drag and drop scheduling, route optimization, automatic customer text and email reminders, plus job timers, so you can track time on site and cut the after hours paperwork. Visit sortscape.com/lawnstars. It also keeps your crew organised with customer history, notes and photos right in the app, so you're not relying on memory or pretty sure we did that last time. Visit sortscape.com/lawnstars.
Thank you for listening to Aussie Lawn Stars. Please remember to rate and review the show on the Apple Podcasts app or the player you use. Exciting new shows are released every Monday. Make sure you follow or subscribe to hear the next episode.